I'm 27. I've officially reached my late 20s era, and I wanted to hop on here to kind of discuss and reflect being in my 20s so far. My 20s have been a wild ride, as to be expected, right? 20s are usually a very transitional and exploratory phase of one's life. I've reached a lot of adult milestones that were important to me, such as getting my master's degree in school counseling, becoming a school counselor, and also living alone. In that way, I feel very proud of myself and the progress that I have done over the years, but I also can't help but feel somewhat unsettled with my life. Still feel like I'm in a transitionary phase in my life, accepting the realities of my job, right? I am a school counselor, but I'm also working at 3 different schools and I'm part-time. So juggling 3 different schools and making sure I have enough time to do everything in the few days a week that I'm at each school. This past year has been very hectic and crazy for me career-wise. On a personal note, I've also gone through a lot of friendship changes this past year, losing a few friends, growing apart, distancing, just realizing that maybe we don't align as much as we used to in the past, and just coming to terms with that, right? I still miss my friends, and I feel sad that we're no longer, as important or play a big role in each other's life anymore. I've also made new friends over the past few years too, which I've been grateful for. The biggest thing for me that I feel like gives me unsettlement in my life is still being single. For me, I am a hopeless romantic at heart, and I've just come to realize this and accept this about myself, but also with that comes being in a romantic relationship on a pedestal. And I know in some ways this is problematic, and being in a romantic relationship will not make your life, better necessarily. And also being in a relationship requires work, but I can't help but feel sort of unaccomplished, or like there's something wrong with me, right? It's hard not to compare yourself to others when you see other people being in long-term relationships, especially with somebody who really wants and tries hard to, be in a long-term relationship with someone. But also I know my worth, or what I want in a relationship, more than I did a few years ago. And dating, sometimes you realize that that person is just not the right one for you. I feel like being in my 20s, dating has been such a roller coaster ride in so many ways, of just being constantly disappointed, but also learning a lot about myself, being in different relationships and figuring out what works for me, what doesn't work for me. And I know I'm still young. I have lots of time to find my life partner. You can find a romantic partner at any age. I just feel like I would have accomplished that milestone for now, and I haven't. And that's okay. And I'm learning to accept that. I'm learning to just go with the flow of my own life, my own path. My relationship with my family has transformed over the past few years, specifically the past 2 years, in so much better ways, and I'm so grateful for that. Years of therapy has really helped me come to the point that I am in my own self journey. Sometimes I also feel myself regressing in some ways when I feel disappointed in a romantic relationship, and I start expressing anxious attachment and things like that, which I feel like I've addressed already in therapy. But I have to remind myself that healing and growing isn't linear, and sometimes we are going to take a few steps back to go forward. And I guess that's just a part of being human, and it's also just a part of being in your 20s. I also feel like a huge barrier of mine is not giving myself enough credit for how much I have grown, right? Because sometimes change can be slow and change can be subtle. So I oftentimes don't notice how much I have changed. I sit down and think about how I was, or how my life was a year ago. I am honestly shocked, and I'm a different person. Oftentimes spend most of my time alone throughout the week. I don't really have any friendship dynamics where we see each other multiple times a week, maybe once a week if I'm lucky, but sometimes every other week. And so I find myself alone a lot. Sometimes this bothers me, and other times it doesn't. In some ways, I guess I do feel lonely, but I have to remind myself that feeling lonely isn't a bad thing, and it doesn't mean I'm gonna feel like this forever. Life is constantly changing, and the next chapter of my life can happen tomorrow, right? I don't know what's gonna happen in the future, and I'm just learning how to appreciate now and being in the present, and trying to feel okay feeling unsettled or being in a place that I don't necessarily want to be, like being single or not seeing my friends as often as I would like. And I guess that's just your 20s for you, or just life in general. But I am 27 and it's been a wild ride.